Welcome back to another Sunday prep day. If you're new here, every Sunday I prep for the week. So that means cutting all my vegetables and making things that take a little bit longer. So today I'm gonna make some butternut squash soup. I'm gonna make some salsa, and I'm gonna make some pickled cucumbers. But we'll start off by cutting up some onion. I have 2 yellow onions for my soup. And I know I'm going to make way too much soup, but I always have part of it for a meal, for lunch, and then the other half I freeze and I use for things like a butternut squash risotto, which I'll probably do like next week. So I just prefer making a big batch just like that. So cutting up some yellow onions, and I'll start by going over my meal plan. So it's Sunday today, and for lunch I'm gonna have some sandwiches. I have some whole wheat bread. I have some chicken breast. So I'll just do that. And I should mention this more often when I go over my meal plan. I'm not really a breakfast person, so I don't usually have breakfast. That's why you won't hear me mention it when I go over the meal plan. And to complete the caveats, I usually have low-carb, keto-friendly lunches because I had to cut some carbs because I'm diabetic. So I have low-carb, keto-friendly lunches except on the weekend when I have my cheat days because I do miss bread. With this onion, also before I forget now, I'll get a couple of cloves of garlic that need to go in. So I'll just leave them whole because they're going to go in the pressure cooker. So don't need to cut that. Then let's do some spring onions. This is mostly because I have them, so I'll use them in a garnish and in like my salsa for a little bit of green color. So I'll just slice that up. But yeah, we were on the meal plan. So for dinner tonight, what am I going to do? I'm going to do some chicken sandwiches. So I'm going to take some chicken thighs, boneless, skinless, and I'm going to coat them in some gochujang and then some panko breadcrumbs, and I'll put them in the air fryer. And I'll have them on some fresh baked rolls with some lettuce and some of the pickles that I'm going to be making in a little bit. So that should be really nice. I'm just going to work on some garlic. I'll just dice that up nice and fine. We're on Monday. Monday for lunch, I do meatless Mondays. So I'm going to have that butternut squash soup. And then for dinner, I'm going to do some vegan tacos. So that's going to be with some beans. Probably kidney beans or maybe black beans. I haven't decided yet. I'll just grab a can from the pantry. But for that, I'll also... I'm basically doing a variation of my vegan lentil tacos, if you've seen me make that before. So that's with shredded carrot and lots of veggies, etc. And I'll have some of the salsa with that as well. And then for Tuesday, for lunch, I'm going to do some green beans with some chicken. I haven't decided what kind of chicken yet. I have a freezer full. I can do bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, or boneless, skinless. I can do a whole chicken breast. I can do some drumsticks. I can do some chicken tenders. We'll just see. I have all of that in the freezer. And then for dinner, I do Taco Tuesdays. I'm going to have some chicken tacos. So chicken, lettuce, veggies, and that roasted salsa again. So that's what I like doing when I prep, by the way. I'll use the same components in different meals, just in different ways. Makes prepping easier, and also because I'm cooking for just myself, I'll usually have like a lot of leftovers. So I get around that by just using the same components in multiple meals, because for instance, like a butternut squash soup is way too much for just one meal for myself. So I always find other things to do with that. Or if I'm gonna make some salsa or something, like it's not worth it making a very tiny batch. So if I spread it out over multiple meals, I can do a bigger batch. So just cutting up a red onion real quick. Then we were on Wednesday, yeah. For Wednesday, I'm gonna do some Brussels sprouts with some bacon lardons and some veggies. So I'll do onions. That's why I'm cutting this red onion, for example. I'll do some peppers, chilies, garlic, all that fun stuff. So, and the Brussels sprouts, I'll just half and take the outer leaves off and saute that in some butter with all the veggies and the bacon. So next up, I have some shallots. I could use red onion, but since I had a bunch of shallots left over, I'll just use those. So I'll just slice them up. These are also for things like the salsa, the tacos, the Brussels sprouts, and I'll have some pasta as well this week. So since these are really thin, I don't have to cut them too fine. And then we're on dinner. For Wednesday, I'm gonna do a noodle bowl with some chicken and some green beans. I'll probably make spicy green beans, so with some sambal. And I think I'll do some peanut sauce. I have a jar of peanut paste, so I just need to add some water or milk to that. I have that in the pantry. So, and then we're on Thursday. For lunch, I'm gonna do some lettuce wraps with some chicken. So again, chicken with some vegetables like onions, peppers, chilies, garlic, etc. And then for dinner, I'm gonna do some pasta with some bacon lardons. So again, that's what I need the shallots for, and the peppers and the chilies and the garlic. All that good stuff. And that leaves us with Friday. For lunch, I'm gonna do some green beans with some salmon. And then for dinner, I'm gonna do a rice bowl with some fish. I haven't fully decided yet. I could do it like a soy sauce kind of thing, but I think I'm gonna do gochujang. And I'll just get some pollock or basa. I have both in the freezer. I'll marinate that in some gochujang and do like a bibimbap kind of thing. That's what I'm thinking. Because I also still have some pickles in the fridge that I can use, or I can use the pickles I'm going to be making. So just have a few options there. It's going to be like a leftover day. Whatever veg I have left. So also for my soup, I need some celery, so I'm just going to take the ends off. And I'm going to blitz it up so it doesn't need to be super fine. So I'll just do like a quick chop. This is probably finer than it needs to be, but this is kind of my default chop. So there we go. And that can go in the bigger container with my onions and my garlic, where I'm going to be gathering all the soup ingredients as I go along. So next up, some carrot. So I'm going to use some for my soup. So I have these big carrots, we call them winter carrots. But if you use regular smaller carrots, just use a few more. So again, I don't need it super fine, but I'm gonna quickly slice that up. And that can go in with my soup ingredients as well. And then the other half, I'm just gonna use my julienne slicer, and this is gonna go in my pasta, in my Brussels sprouts, and my bean tacos. So I just use my julienne slicer there because that's a lot more even and a lot quicker than I can do it by hand, but you absolutely could do it by hand. Just makes things easy on yourself. Like, I have decent knife skills because I've been doing this for years. If you don't feel comfortable with something, use like a one of those V slicers, or just go slow. Don't be intimidated by prep. So here I have some cucumber, and again, I'm gonna make it easy on myself. I'll get my slicer because I want some nice even slices, because these are gonna go in my pickle. So I'll just go through that real quick, enough to fill a jar. And this is the same jar I'm going to be making my pickles in a bit, but first I'm going to finish chopping everything. Then next up, I have my butternut squash. So there's different ways of peeling them, but the easiest way for me is to cut off the straight end and just cut off the top. And then it stands up like that, and I'll just work my way around and peel it. And the same with the bottom end. I'll just cut the very bottom off so it's nice and stable, and I'll just work my way around peeling the skin off. And then the bottom half I'll cut in half like that so I can get to the seeds. I'll take a spoon and I'll just scoop all of that out. You can save the seeds if you want to and dry them, roast them, but I don't really care for that, so I'm just going to discard them. And then time to chop this into smaller pieces. And so I'll just cut it one way and then across. And since I am going to blend this up, it doesn't need to be super fine. And then we'll move on to the big end again. Cut it lengthwise like this, then sticks, and cut across. Always make sure you have a flat base to work with so things are not rocking around as you're chopping it. And I almost forgot to mention, when I post these Sunday Prep Day videos, I also always post on Instagram, where I'll have the meal plan written out and all the ingredients that you'll need. And for the soup, I did write down 1 onion, but the onions I was using here are really small, so I ended up going with 2 yellow onions for that. And the same with the carrot. I wrote down 3 carrots total, but I have this massive carrot, so I just used 1 instead. I could have done a bit more, but that's what I had. But yeah, I'll just get this in with the rest of the soup ingredients. And then let's do some peppers next. So I have some red and some green. These are sweet Anaheim peppers. They're not spicy, they're just pointy. I prefer using these because they're just smaller and easier to cut. And I can use a few different colors instead of one big one. So these are going to go in my pasta, in my salsa, in my Brussels sprouts, my tacos, etc. So just cut them in half, clean them out, and then to dice them, you cut them lengthwise first and then across. So that was the red one, and I'm doing the exact same thing for these green ones. And the reason I'm using different colors is just for different colors. They don't really taste that much different. And sticking with the nightshade family, next up I have some chilies, I have some cayenne, I have some jalapeno, The cayenne, I'll just slice in half. Not in half, in the little rings. And again, I'm just doing different colors for different colors. And then these jalapenos, I will take the seeds out just because there's a lot more of it. And by the way, the chilies I'm going to use for my pasta, for my Brussels sprouts with bacon, for my tacos. I'll use them in several meals. My salsa, if I didn't say that already. And then I'll just dice them up, same as the peppers, cut them lengthwise first, and then across. And then one more thing in the nightshade family. Actually, I'll put that in here. I'm going to make a chunky salsa. So I need some cherry tomatoes for that. I don't want to over mix it. That's why I'm already chopping this up a little bit. I just want to give it a few pulses so it still stays nice and chunky. And I'll just have all of these. Right, that's tomatoes. Then next up, I'll do some cilantro. So I'll give that a rough chop first. And I'll just save the stems. These stems you can use for things like a curry paste and things like that. So I should probably do a curry again sometime soon. But yeah, the rest of this, all the leaves, I'll just cut nice and fine. And some of this is going to go in my salsa, and the rest I'll just use for my my tacos. So like I said, some can go in with my salsa, and the rest in a container to use with my tacos. Then next up, I have some broccoli. I'll do this small head, and I'll just cut off the florets. One small head or half a normal head is probably enough for one portion. And these bigger pieces, bigger florets, I'll just cut in half. And if this is your first time watching, don't throw away the stems. Use them for things like broccoli rice, I always do. And then up next, I have a whole bunch of Brussels sprouts. These are relatively small, so I'm going to have them. If you have really big ones, I know in the States they prefer the really big Brussels sprouts, quarter them. Just make them a nice bite size. But yeah, I'll just take off the end. The loose leaves will fall off. And then cut them in half or quarters if they're bigger. And I'll just work through this whole batch. And if your Brussels sprouts come cleaned, you don't have to take these outer leaves off, but these have not been cleaned already. So it's not that much work, if I'm honest. And then last but not least for chopping, I have a whole bunch of green beans. And I will just top and tail those. And that's all the chopping out of the way. That took 37 minutes. So now I'm just going to quickly clean up a bit. And then I'll be back to make the soup and the salsa and the pickles. Alright, time to finish up. I have my Ninja Foodi preheated on saute. So just add a bit of oil. And then I'll add my vegetables. So to recap, I have some butternut squash. You can use regular pumpkin. I have some carrot, I have some onion, I have some celery, I have some garlic. So just throw that in. I'll add some salt. And I'm just going to let all of that soften. And while that is going, we'll work on the salsa. So here I have my cherry tomatoes that I halved and my diced or minced up cilantro. I'll add some garlic, some spring onions, shallot, but you can use red onion as well. And the reason I chopped all of this, by the way, is because I just want to pulse this. I want this to be quite chunky. I don't want to get this all to mush, so I don't want to blend it for too long. I'll do some pepper. I'll mostly use red just for color because there's already green in there from the cilantro. And the same with the chilies. I'll mostly use red or some dark green. Add some salt. Cumin. And here I have a lime, so I'm just going to cut that in half. And give that a quick juice. And then I'll just give this a quick few pulses. And there, like I said, still nice and chunky, just the way I like it. I'll take the blades out. Give it a quick taste for seasoning. That's perfect. That can just go in the fridge, ready to use on Monday and Tuesday. And in the meantime, we can work on our pickles while that is still sauteing. So I have a pan on the heat, and I'll add some vinegar. I'm using some yuzu vinegar just because I have it, and I think it would make an interesting flavor. Now this will give a distinctive flavor to the pickles. It's like an Asian flavor, so if you want something more neutral, if you want to use your pickled cucumbers for something else as well, just use regular vinegar. I'm just going to use a little bit of regular vinegar just because this was only like a third of a bottle, small bottle, so I'll add a little splash of regular vinegar just to bulk that out a bit. And then I'll also add a little bit of sugar, not too much. It really depends on how sweet you like it. I have quite a bit of vinegar in there, so I'm doing like 2 tablespoons, but do it to suit your taste. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt and a little splash of water, and I'm just going to let that come up to a simmer. And in the meantime, the vegetables have softened, so I'm going to throw in half a bunch of parsley. I'm just going to throw it in whole, because when I blend up the soup, I don't want all that green in there. I want that nice vibrant orange color, so I'm just going to fold it in half really to make it fit easier. Just chuck it in, and then when the soup is done, before I blend it, I can just take that whole bunch out. And I'll just add a splash of water. And then I'm going to take my pressure cook lid. Again, if you don't have a pressure cooker, you don't need to. You can just use your regular pan. You can slow cook it, whatever you need. But I have a pressure cooker. It makes things a lot quicker, especially with filming, so I can get to editing soon. So I'll just put that on pressure cook. This is just some vegetables, so I'll give that 20 minutes to do that thing. Valve is closed, so yeah, that can just go, and I don't have to pay attention to that anymore until it's time to blend that up. My pickling liquid came up to a simmer, so just turn that off. That's ready. All the sugar has dissolved. So to lean in on the Asian flavor, I'm going to add some sesame seeds to the pickles as well. You don't need to, but just see what you like. And I'm going to pour over my pickling liquid. And you don't need to fill it all the way to the top, but you need to make sure that everything is covered by the pickling liquid. So just put the lid on and let this cool down. And this is just a refrigerator style pickle, so it's not going to last forever, but it should last for a week or 2 in the fridge. So that's just ready to cool down, go in the fridge, and that's that done. So now I just need to wait for the soup. And that is the soup done. Like I said, I just took the parsley out after it finished cooking, and I gave that a quick blitz with my stick blender. So that's ready to go. I just need to heat that through tomorrow for lunch, and whatever I don't use, I'll freeze, and I'll use that for a risotto or something next week or the week after. So that's all the prep work for this week. I can now have lunch or dinner on the table in minutes. And if you like this kind of content, I do this every single Sunday. And if you'd like to see what I do with all of this every month, I post a video on here showing you everything I eat in a day using all the components that I prepped. I just posted one this past Friday. Or you can check out my Instagram where I post every single meal. So if that all sounds good to you, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.